Good morning, guys. So today we're going to be working with distributive property, which again, I have a feeling that you guys have done before, but I just got to guarantee that you guys know it just because again, going forward, it is going to help us be able to simplify and work on different lessons throughout the year. So distributive property, sorry, that looks like an A. Distributive property literally means, let's say that we have this example where we have 2x plus 6, right? What the distributive property tells you is you have all of these terms that are in the parentheses, right? You have the 2 that's outside the parentheses. What the distributive property tells you is you want to distribute this 2, whatever's outside the parentheses, to everything that's inside, right? So when it's a distributive property, you literally want to distribute it, right? So the 2 has to go to the x. The 2 also has to go to the 6, right? That's what distributive property is. And whenever you're passing on the terms from everything that's on the outside to everything inside, you always multiply, right? So when you distribute, you always multiply. So follow the arrows, right? If you have 2 times x, it would end up being 2x, right? And then we have the plus sign, right? And then we have 2 times 6. 2 times 6 gives us 12. And that's it. That's all distributive property is, guys. It's where you're literally distributing, you're passing along whatever's on the outside to everything that's on the inside. And it's always multiplication. Don't forget that. So 2 times x was 2x. 2 times 6 is 12, right? Just don't forget, it's always multiplication, guys. So just seeing how it works. And again, you build off of distributive property, guys, but it's good to just see where it's all coming from and all that. So let's say we have this, right? We had 6 times 4f minus 8, right? Let's say we have that. And again, following distributive property, you know that everything that's on the inside, it has to be applied with the 6, right? So the 6 is going to distribute to there. You know, the 6 is going to distribute to the 8, right? So, and again, whenever you distribute, it's always multiplication, right? So if we have that, we know that 6 times 4f is going to end up being 24f, right? And we know it's going to be 24f because 6 times 4 is 24, right? And then we can't forget the f. We have minus sign, right? And now we would do 6 times 8 gives us 48. And again, that's it. All we do with distributive property, guys, you just multiply. You know, 6 times 4 was 24f minus, and then 6 times 8 was 48. Again, and we know we also can't combine these because that has an f, that doesn't. Since they're not like terms, you can't combine them, right? Now, just to actually start seeing too that you guys are good with signs, we have, let's say we have negative 3 times m minus 2, right? And this, even though it looks so much easier, it's where people make mistakes because again, the negatives. People hate the negatives. So we have the negative 3, right? That's going to go to the m. We also have that negative 3. That's going to end up going to that 2, right? But this is where we got to be careful. First one people are always fine with, right? We know that negative 3 times m is going to end up giving us negative 3m, right? Because again, all we did was negative 3 times m gives us negative 3m. It's where people go next that usually has issues with it. A lot of times people will write a minus sign right there. They say, I see a minus, so that's got to be a minus. But that's where you got to be careful because we're distributing a negative 3, right? So what we're saying is negative 3 times a negative is a positive. And the reason that that becomes, again, a positive is we have a negative, and a negative times a negative becomes a positive, right? And now we know that 3 times 2 gives us 6. And that's the one issue that people make a lot of times. It's not the numbers, it's not the terms, it's not distributing, it's the negative sign. So remember, a negative times a positive was a negative, and then the negative times a negative gives us a positive, right? So negative 3 times m is negative 3m. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Careful with the negatives, guys. So again, 2 more problems just to make sure. And if you can get that, in all honesty, you're fine with all the other ones for the most part. So you're going to have now, let's say 5 times h plus 10, right? And then we'll do plus 3h plus 6. And actually, you know what? Let's change that positive 10. Let's change that to a minus 10, right? And now again, we have more terms, but start with what you guys know already. You know that that has no distribution. This we see we have to distribute, right? So the 5 is going to go to h. The 5 is also going to go to the 10, right? So before anything else, let's distribute, right? We know that, let's write it down here. We know that 5 times h is going to end up being 5h, right? We know that 5 times negative 10 is going to end up being minus 50. So all I did there, right? 5 times h was 5h. There's a minus sign, right? Since there's no negative, minus. 5 times 10 is 50. And now we bring down what we had, right? Plus 3h plus 6. And now we're not done, right? Because even though we distributed, right? 5 times h, 5h, 5 times 10, 50. Even though we distributed, now we can combine like terms, right? So let's see what we can combine. We have the 5h right here, right? We know that 5h we can combine with 3h. And we can do that because they're like terms, right? They both have an h. So we know that 5h plus 3h gives us 8h, right? Because 5 plus 3 gives us 8, right? And since we combine those, we're done with those. Now let's combine the other terms, right? We have a 50, but be careful with that because it's not just 50, it's negative 50. We have a negative 50 and we have a positive 6, right? So if we were to do that right now, if we were to do negative 50 plus 6, we would have negative 44, guys. Okay? So again, it would be minus 44, just because, again, negative 50 plus 6 gives us negative 44. And we know we can't combine anymore because that has an h, that doesn't. So we'd be done right there, guys. Again, just combining like terms. But before you combine like terms, you have to make sure you distribute there, right? And one more, guys. This is just to guarantee that you guys know it, and I'm pretty sure you guys all know it already. But I just wanted to guarantee that you guys did. We have 4 times 2x plus 6, right? Plus, then we have 7 times x minus 3, right? Again, it looks more complicated, but you guys can do this because now instead of just doing distributive property once, you're going to do distributive property 2 times, right? So the first part, this 4 only applies to that first part, right? So 4 goes to the 2x, 4 goes to the 6, right? Over there, we know that the 7 goes to the x, and we know that the 7 goes to the 3. So break it up into 2 problems, right? You have the first part, you have the second part. We know that distributive property, again, you multiply. So 4 times 2 is going to end up giving us 8x, right? 4 times 2 is 8x plus, we know that 4 plus 6 is 24, right? So all we did, 4 times 2 is 8x, 4 times 6 was 24, right? So that first part's done right there. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Bring down the plus sign. We know that 7 times x is 7x, right? We know that 7 times 3 is 21, but don't forget the minus sign, right? Again, if that was a negative 7, it would be a little bit differently because we'd be multiplying a negative. But whenever it's a positive sign you're distributing, it becomes so much easier. So again, all I did, 4 times 2 was 8, 4 times 6 was 24, 7 times x was 7x, 7 times 3 was 21, but since it was negative, brought down the negative, right? Because now at this point, all it is, it's just now combining like terms, right? So we want to combine the 8x and the 7x, right? Because those are our common terms. Those are the ones with the same variable. So 8x plus 7x gives us 15x, right? So all I did was 8x plus 7x to give us 15x. Those are done. And now we can combine the non-variable terms, right? So we have 24, we have 21, right? So we just do what it says. It's saying you have a positive 24 minus 21, we know that 24, right? 24 minus 21 is going to end up giving us 3, a positive 3. So 24 minus 21 is 3, positive 3. And we're done. Again, we can't combine those because that has an X, that doesn't. All it is, guys, remember, distributive property, it's just literally multiplying into everything that's in the parentheses, guys. Again, hope you understand. Any questions, feel free to ask. Take care.